Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Flames Reaction Channel. Now, today's video, we are going to check out some of the Lost Pyramid in Egypt. And before we go any further, if you have not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and add your comment. And also, don't forget to turn on that post notification bell when new videos are released every Tuesday and Saturday at 11 p.m. Also, if you guys want to follow me on TikTok, the link will also be under the description down below, and you can follow me from there. And without further ado, let's check out this video review and see some of the pyramids in Egypt.
Hello there, guys. Ancient Egypt. Gotta be one of my favorite civilizations. If there's one thing the Egyptians are famous for, it has to be their pyramids, those megalithic geometric monuments. There are somewhere between 118 to 138 pyramids scattered throughout all of Egypt. Most were built primarily during the Old and Middle Kingdoms period, serving as tombs for great pharaohs and yes, built by Egyptians.
We learned many things from the mighty Egyptians, such as pyramid building.
They vary greatly in size, shape, and degree of preservation. Some have remained relatively intact since their construction, while others are barely distinguishable from curious hills or mounds of dirt. Without a doubt, the most impressive examples are the three pyramids at Giza, which were and still are some of the tallest man-made structures on the Earth. The sheer size of Egypt's pyramids makes them enduring testaments to humanity's collective ingenuity. Even after, in some instances, close to 5,000 years, they still stand silent and defiant on the desert landscape, baking under a hot sun. I would wager that even some of the most powerful weapons at our disposal today wouldn't be sufficient enough to completely destroy them. And yet, what if I were to tell you that two of Egypt's greatest pyramids are missing, and
Hmm.
have been missing for over 2,000 years, without even leaving the smallest trace of their existence? I want to try to answer the question of how something as big as a pyramid can disappear. Today, we will be taking a deep dive into one of Egypt's most obscure mysteries, the twin lost pyramids of Lake Moeris.
Hmm.
Our story begins over 2,000 years ago, sometime during the 5th century BCE, with a Greek man named Herodotus. Towards the end of the century, Herodotus sat at his desk, finishing up the last touches on what would probably be the world's first travel guide. You see, Herodotus was a widely traveled man, much more so than most of his time period. By age 60, he had crossed much of the world known to the ancient Greeks, from the grassland plains of Scythia in the north to the grand and opulent city of Babylon to the south. Towards the end of his life, he put quill to papyrus all that he had heard and learned on his adventures. His detailed account of his travels was called the Histories. His work was pretty revolutionary, as it redefined the word history, turning it into a scholarly pursuit to learn the truth of humanity's past. In fact, Herodotus is known today as the father of history. The Histories records the sights, peoples, and stories Herodotus encountered and observed on his travels. Everything from the rise and fall of kings, to battles and wars, to animals and plants. So much that even after 2 years, I still haven't finished his book. Significant to this video is the time he spent in Egypt. It is clear from his writings that Herodotus was fascinated with Egypt. It was very likely his favorite region in the whole world. He wrote that Egypt is a land boasting an inordinate number of wonders, and possessing more monuments surpassing description than any in the world. His colorful account describes many places and monuments that still stand today, and remain just as impressive to modern sightseers as they did to ones over 2,000 years ago. At one point, Herodotus traveled down the Nile River to Lake Moeris. Lake Moeris was a giant freshwater lake fed by the Nile. Clinging to its shores was a city that Herodotus called Crocodilopolis, or the City of Crocodiles, named after the curious scaly creatures that swam in the waters and were worshipped as sacred by the local inhabitants. Near the city was the Labyrinth, a wonder beyond description, as Herodotus puts it, and I speak as someone who has seen it with his own eyes. Even the pyramids come second to the labyrinth. It was a sprawling maze of thousands of courtyards, walls, and rooms, both above and below the ground, sounding like something more out of fantasy than history. But even the lake itself was a wonder. Herodotus claims that it was entirely man-made, dug into the earth by the hands of countless Egyptian laborers, under the direct orders of a long-dead pharaoh. Now, his evidence for this was intriguing, as it was, well, yet another wonder. Clear evidence that Lake Moeris was excavated by human hand is furnished by the lake itself, for almost in its dead center there are two pyramids, both of which project above the surface of the water to a height of 50 fathoms, and extend below it in an identical distance. Both are also surmounted by a seated figure on a throne, colossal in size and made of stone. In all, then, the pyramids measure a total of 100 fathoms, or since 1 fathom equals 6 feet, a spade of 600 feet. These are the twin pyramids of Lake Moeris, each standing 600 feet high, over 150 feet taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. And unlike the Giza pyramids, which were crowned with a simple geometric capstone, these pyramids were crowned with the colossal statues of pharaohs or gods, which glared down at passing fishermen drifting on the lake. Such a sight must have taken the breaths away from countless ancient visitors just like Herodotus. But at this point, you as the viewer are likely asking some questions. Why haven't I heard of these pyramids before? If they existed, why aren't they as famous as their smaller cousins? And how come there are no pictures of them beyond a couple old drawings? Well, this is because they are missing, plain and simple. Historians and archaeologists for centuries have looked in vain for these twin pyramids. This isn't out of the ordinary for Herodotus. A lot of time has passed since he wrote his book. The ceaseless footsteps of time have marched on. Many wonders he describes seeing as an eyewitness have long since disappeared or faded. Of the chamber hollowed out from a single gargantuan block of stone that took 3 years and 2,000 men to haul to Sais, all that remains today is a huge, shapeless mound of rubble. The fantastical labyrinth, so highly praised by our Greek tourist, is known to modern archaeologists as the Pyramid of Hawara complex. The site is a sad shadow of its former self. The walls and rooms have collapsed, making it hard to reconstruct what it may have looked like in its original state. Even Lake Moeris has changed significantly with time. It is known to locals today as Birket Karun. The shifting of the River Nile and several man-made irrigation projects have shrunk the lake to a fraction of its ancient size and turned its waters from fresh to salty. Herodotus would scarcely recognize the region today.
Topgolf is introducing free playtime. Anytime. Waggles on a Wednesday? Free. Saturday.
But what about the two pyramids, once half submerged in the lake? Could monuments as great and massive as them disappear from the world entirely? Like I said, pyramids are one of humanity's more enduring construction projects. Their shape actually makes them stand the test of time far better than other types of buildings. If so, where did these pyramids go then? Well, I hate to break it to you, but the twin pyramids of Lake Moeris likely didn't exist. At least not in the way Herodotus describes them. You see, our buddy has a problem. Well, quite a few problems. He was prone to mistakes. The 2,400-year-old mistake. In the century since Herodotus finished his landmark work, readers found issues, inconsistencies that raised eyebrows. Gradually, the histories were shown to be filled with copious amounts of errors and misinformation. To the point that some critics have called Herodotus the father of lies, rather than the father of history. A great example of this phenomena can be seen in Herodotus's description of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Herodotus writes that the Great Pyramid was 800 feet high. Now, its true height is closer to 500, meaning the Greek almost doubled its height for his book. Lake Moeris was not a man-made lake as Herodotus claims, but was a natural reservoir that was only slightly modified by the ancient Egyptians. Many such exaggerations and errors have been demonstrated to fill the pages of the histories. Now, I'm actually going to defend Herodotus a little bit here. I'm not entirely convinced that his behavior was intentional, at least not all the time. Herodotus was visiting in Egypt very much past its prime. Many of the buildings and monuments he observed were already 1,000 years old, built before the Bronze Age collapse.
Fetch me their soul!
He was basically describing a post-apocalyptic landscape. Also, Herodotus freely admits that he could not read Egyptian hieroglyphics. This means he was entirely at the mercy of his native guides. If they said a particular fact about a monument or a pharaoh, he didn't really have a way to fact-check them. In this way, one can see how he got wild overestimations and false information. And now we arrive at Lake Moeris' pyramids. In truth, archaeologists have found some archaeological remains of a great monument on the shore of the dried-up lake. These are the pedestals of Biha Amu, located just a couple miles north of the city of Fayum, formerly the city of crocodiles. Though today only the bases survive, they were once the thrones of two colossal statues, made from quartzite stone. From fragments, we can reconstruct that they likely depicted two great pharaohs seated side by side. Archaeologists have argued that they were likely raised under the reign of Amenemhat III, a great conquering pharaoh from Egypt's 12th dynasty, and most likely the pharaoh depicted in the sculptures. Their descriptions adheres very closely to Herodotus' account of the twin pyramids, save one thing: their size. Scholars have theorized that each of the colossi, including the pedestal, originally stood somewhere between 59 to 60 feet tall, making them some of the tallest sculptures constructed in Egypt since the Giza Sphinx. Herodotus' pyramids, on the other hand, were reportedly closer to 600 feet tall, though he never saw their lower halves because they were submerged in the water.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
From their description to their location, everything matches except the height. I think what is most likely happening here is another one of Tricky Herod's over-exaggerations. Just like the Giza Pyramid, either Herodotus was bad at eyeballing things, or his guides were messing with him, as he ended up with a height that was 10 times the actual. In their commentary on Herodotus, the modern scholars Howe and Wells proposed a theory on how the Greek could have been so wrong. You see, Herodotus had only seen the statues from Arsinoe across the lake, and had accepted the greatly exaggerated figures of his guides. That's right, it is very likely that our boy was lazy. He saw the blurry haze of two statues from far away, and his guide or guides used it as a chance to mess with him. Herodotus never got a chance to fact-check them, so he went home and wrote it down in his book none the wiser, unintentionally creating a mystery that lasted over 2,000 years.
Wow.
Now tell him those are two giant pyramids. Yes, it is likely that's stupid. Don't get me wrong, the Bihamu Colossi were impressive. If you saw the site in its heyday, you would have marveled at its size and scale, the intricacy of its carvings. Herodotus unfairly got our expectations too high. These drawings are fanciful fan art, based on nothing more than Herodotus' twisted account. Now that we know what happened to the pyramids, what happened to the statues? Well, we know that they remained relatively intact as late as the 1240s AD, less than 700 years ago. An Islamic scholar wrote that he once saw them, but he later reported that they had been destroyed by locals who believed that treasure was hidden inside the two statues. I guess like a Tootsie Pop. And so the colossi were smashed into 100 smaller fragments, yielding nothing but their dignity, according to one account. When European archaeologists in the 1800s stopped by, they found the pile that had once been the statues. In 1888, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie collected a good portion of the fragments and brought them back to England. The Ashmolean Museum in Oxford still holds 47 pieces. The oversized nose of one of the stone pharaohs hangs on the wall in the museum's Egyptian Sculpture Gallery. It's not one of the most glamorous features in the collection, but there it is. One of the very same noses a Greek tourist 2,000 years ago squinted at and could barely make out from across the extinct waters of Lake Moeris. A small source that gave rise to a big myth. And that is how two pyramids can go missing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see.
All right, y'all. If you enjoyed that video, once again, add your comment and don't forget to leave a like. And I'll see y'all in the next one.